Well, don't look now, but Coyotes forward Clayton Keller has surpassed his career high scoring total over the weekend. On today's Locked On Coyotes, we'll be breaking down what to make of this phenomenal year from the future captain of the Arizona Coyotes.
You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Robyn Leonio. That's Carl Pavlak right beside me on this episode of Locked On Coyotes. I want to thank everyone for making this show your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube. Today, we're talking about Clayton Keller, Carl, because over the weekend, he has surpassed his career high in scoring, so in both points and goals. And he's just not stopping. This dude is just having a tear this season, and we're just in for the ride.
Yeah. Clayton Keller currently has 69 points in 67 games. We're getting to the end of the season. Looks like Keller may very well finish at a point per game pace. I think the last player to do anything like that was Ray Whitney. Could be wrong, but Keller is just absolutely phenomenal. He's looking great with Schmaltz and Hayton. Just a fantastic year.
Yeah, it's funny because we're like, talking about those lines is like, specifically. I mean, we knew he'd always play well against Schmaltz. Having Hayton up there, it kind of surprised me, but like, I think anything, like, if you can do anything to try to make Clayton Keller better, like that's kind of one of the big goals here for the Arizona Coyotes. We talked about him last week on our cornerstone episode as cornerstone players, and one of the very integral parts of the like not just a cornerstone, but like a major cornerstone. Like he's like a lot of things can fall apart without him, and like it just really goes to show how important he is to this team.
Absolutely. Keller is probably the most important piece to this team right now, especially the most active player. He is who you are doing this rebuild off of, because there's always the younger players. They're Logan Cooley's, the Dylan Gunthers, whoever the Coyotes draft in the first round, this year's draft. Those players are always going to be there, but you also want to have like just a veteran, like offensively gifted player to build off of while they're getting ready. And, as Keller begins to kind of like enter that veteran stage of his career, those players are going to be entering their prime, this year of Keller's career.
And another thing too is like, we talked about also on that episode last week about like Lawson Krause, for example, being like a blueprint of like what Bill Armstrong wants from his team. Clayton Keller is like that is a different end of it in sense. It's like, okay, you have Lawson Krause is the blueprint to the physical side of the team. Clayton Keller is the blueprint to the skill set, right? Yeah. He is one of the like without a doubt the most skilled player on the team. And it really shows.
Yeah, he is the most dynamic player. He is the most like dangerous with the puck. He can score goals. He can assist. He can play make. He can do everything. Like the fact that he has 29 goals this season is astonishing. Like I don't think anyone pictured Keller as a 30 goals player, but it looks like he is consistently going to be that.
He is consistently going to be that, and to think that he's still in his, mid 20s, like he is
24.
24. He's still like early mid 20s. He's in early mid 20s.
Early mid 20s, yes.
There we
sure.
Go. Look, I'm in my 20s, so like I'm trying to,
Yeah. He's in the first half of his 20s. He's not in the bad half. But yeah, like when I say his prime is now, it's not. His prime is probably like 2 years from now.
100%. You know, you tend to see like a lot of forwards, they talk about they reaching their prime at around 26, 27 years old. If you take a look at some of the big contracts that forwards got, I'm going to use Maple Leafs forward John Tavares as an example. He got his deal at 27 years old, 28, somewhere around there.
I think 28, but may have been just like it felt like he was with the Islanders for forever, and that saga was forever.
Yeah, but I mean that gets an example though, right? That tells you Clayton Keller. I mean, he already is, get a decent amount of money, but he's going to command even more money when his contract is up. Luckily, he's kind of got a few more years under that current contract, which is shaping out to be looking really good. We're wondering what a few years ago if that was an issue. We're going to talk about a little more of that contract. I know you probably have a comment on that. We're going to get to that though in just a moment. But first, I want to talk to you guys about some of our sponsors on the show. And the midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet of up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers, the threes drained. There's so many fun aspects to making a bet. I know a lot of you college basketball fans are going to focus on making some bets in the March Madness tournament. This is an Arizona-based podcast. You might want to take a bet on how far the Arizona Wildcats go. They're always the top, one of the top teams in there. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at bigger payout with same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked-on. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. So let's get to that contract talk, Carl, because Clayton Keller, if I'm looking at his contract, has... Gotta get that tab open.
Right. While you're doing that, I do want to say it looks like Tavares was 27 when he signed his deal with the Maple Leafs.
There you go. So he was 27. Clayton Keller is going to be about 30 years old when his contract is up. He's still got 6 more years on his deal. And at $7 million, if you are a Coyotes fan, if you are focusing on the Coyotes like that, like right now, he's making worth every penny right now. And I talked and I asked and we talked and I mentioned this and I teased this a few years ago. We were like, he's not really living up to his deal. He's good, but he's not really living up to his deal completely. Now he's like, you know what? I think he's living up to his deal. Obviously, he has to stay consistent about that, but I think he's progressing.
Absolutely. He is getting better every season and just improving in several ways. You could look at the fact that he only played 67 games last year before getting sidelined with that really horrific injury. He is a goal better and five assists better. That is, small growth, but that's still growth. I think that we are going to need to go back sooner or later and look at the 4 John Chayka deals, the Keller, Schmaltz, Dvorak, and Chychrun. Unfortunately, 2 of them are no longer with the team.
Right.
But I always said that with the type of deals that they were, if 2 of them hit and hit big, then that is just a phenomenal move by Chayka to lock in talent at a very young age. I don't think that he was particularly good at the rest of the aspects of being a GM. and his exit was certainly not ideal.
No.
But John Chayka saw something in Clayton Keller in what is honestly some of the worst seasons of hockey he has played, and was willing to take a chance on him. And the Coyotes are like absolutely benefiting from that.
Absolutely. And it is nice to see that, he saw that potential, because again, at the time when you saw that 8-year deal or whatever, 8-year extension, however long, like, get put into place, we're just like, I don't know if like I said, I don't know if he's worth that money. That was at the end of the Tocchet era, right? Yeah. We're like, what can possibly happen? Like, what can we see more from him? I mean, he's good. Don't get us wrong. It's not like he's, no, like at the time we were thinking, not like he's a bad player or anything. He's good. He's just not money. And then this season happens. Even last season, this season, and all of a sudden, we're just like, who is this guy? If he progressively gets better, and like I said, his contract's not up until he turns 30.
Yeah. Which, I mean, you already have him in his prime years. So, like, ideally, you want him to stick around as, like, veteran leadership at that point. And supplemental scoring, maybe, because let's be honest, right now, he is the primary offense generator for the Coyotes.
100%.
Hopefully 6 years from now, Logan Cooley is going to be the primary offense generator for the Coyotes. Dylan Guenther is. Like, those are players who have ridiculously high ceilings. And I think that they can make Keller a better player, but I think that they could also hopefully exceed him in some ways.
And it will completely round out that offense. Like, by the time Cooley and Guenther, and those prospects are reaching, their, upward trajectory towards their prime, like, that Coyotes top 6, I think, but at that period in time is going to be like unstoppable.
It's going to be, I think, one of the better top 6 in the NHL. Provided Guenther and Cooley hit like they're supposed to, like it looks like they will, which I have every piece of confidence that they will.
We side note really quick. I saw this, and it just kind of gives you an idea of, the hope for Coyotes fans. Logan Cooley, if you saw, I think there was a bit like on when it did like star probability, like right after the draft versus at this point in the season.
Oh yeah,
it's like he's now surpassed Shane Wright in a higher percentage on star probability.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that. Although let's be real, I don't think anyone thinks that the Seattle Kraken's handling of Shane Wright was particularly good. So, like, I feel bad for that guy. He is going to be one of the people who I think we look back on and be like, man, his development in some pivotal years was just completely jacked up by things outside of his control.
That brings a question, and I know today's episode should be all about Clayton Keller, but it does put me a question onto you. Is there going to be any comparison on the issues of what's going on with Shane Wright to the drafting of Dylan Strome?
No, not necessarily. Not in my opinion. I think one of the things that we've talked about a lot is it is my opinion that Dylan Strome being drafted 3rd overall is the worst thing that's ever happened to him, because it gave an expectation that he not necessarily lived up for a long time. He seems to be doing extremely well in Washington, which is good. I like that he is being successful, but Shane Wright, he wasn't drafted 1st overall. That is going to be, I think, the defining thing in his career.
Fair enough. I mean, like I was meaning talking about, the managerial treatment of said players.
I I don't necessarily think that the way that the Coyotes handled Strom is as bad as kind of like what the Kraken did in stringing him along. And there's nothing in Strom's development that could be anywhere close to like what the COVID-19 pandemic did to like a
Fair enough.
pivotal year of
That's
Wrights Jr.'s career.
absolutely fair point. But we're going to continue to talk about Clayton Keller, and talking about his future of the Arizona Coyotes, and talk about what the future of the Arizona Coyotes in general looks like with him at the helm, in just a minute. But first, we're going to take a quick break and take a word from our sponsors.
Our next partner has a product that I use literally every day. I started taking AG1 because I want to optimize my immune system and I hate taking daily pills and vitamins. I really like AG1. It is very convenient for me. I've been trying to eat more or drink more smoothies in the morning just as a bit of health. So take my juice, take my spinach, take some AG1, throw in there with a banana and some strawberries. It's the perfect thing. And it costs you less than $3 a day. And if you're investing in your health, it's cheaper than something like a cold brew habit. It's cheaper than getting a bunch of different supplements. You're investing in an all-in-one nutritional insurance. And to make things even easier, Athletic Green is going to give you a free 1-year supply of the immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs when you get your first purchase. All you need to do is go to athleticgreens.com/NHL network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
All right, so let's wrap things up on a note here. Question for you, Carl, about looking at Clayton Keller's performance and the performance of the Coyotes as a whole this year. What's happened to the tank?
The tank is still going to happen. I think the Coyotes are due for another strong losing streak. But Keller is doing what he needs to do. I think the big difference between this season and last, and I need to look up to kind of see who is scoring these goals, but like the Coyotes tend to be pretty good in the third period. They weren't against the Avalanche, but in general, they're fighting to tie things up. They're fighting to force overtime. And usually it's a timely goal. And I remember Clayton Keller scoring a lot of those.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing to see, his performance despite this season. I don't like they're already, on a better pace a much better pace than last year. Which is interesting because you look at I look at the rest of the teams and just like the Coyotes are better than the bottom, 4 teams right now. Like, the Sharks, the Ducks, the Blue Jackets, like for example, like those 3 teams are god awful.
The Blackhawks,
god awful. Like,
well, I mentioned, I think a couple weeks ago, Clayton Keller has more points than the top 2 Blackhawks players. I don't know if that's still true, but it probably is. He's been going on a point streak. And that's kind of a major issue. The only way the Coyotes could have gotten worse enough to like seriously tank at the deadline would be if they traded Clayton Keller. And that would just hurt the team's long-term futures. Like there's kind of, I think this is kind of what the bottom of the thing is going to be. Because, we're talking about Keller, but his line mates, Hayton and Schmaltz. Hayton, young player, you kind of want to keep him around. He's playing really well with Keller. Schmaltz is a player who could potentially be replaced, but we're talking about Gunther coming in.
mm-hmm.
And then the McBain, Michelli, Krause line. That's another young line that you're probably going to just keep together.
I mean, that top 6 right now just seems like promising.
Yeah.
Right. I can't say great because obviously like if you put up that top 6 against like the Tampa Bay Lightning, they might have some issues, but it's still a solid top 6
Yeah.
for a lot of reasons. And again, you put it up against a mid-level team and they'll compete. Look what they've done in the last couple of days.
Absolutely. I still think they're catching a lot of teams off guard. A lot of teams think that it's going to be an easy win, and it's not. They're also just happening to be facing a lot of teams who were absolutely wrecked at the rebuild or at the trade deadline.
Oh, absolutely. And add in the fact that Mullet Arena is what it is, a harder place to play.
Yeah.
And it just adds on to the aspect. The term mullet magic is still there. And Clayton Keller, who was just instilled more of that mullet magic energy over the weekend, which if obviously if anyone missed it, I feel bad for you, but because that was something else.
It was a rough game in a lot of ways, but the Coyotes got to overtime, and that Keller goal, it is great to see what Keller can do. I also do like the fact that he is finding a good groove with Barrett Hayton. I think Hayton is one of those players that the Coyotes need to stick around. For the longest time, he was considered a bust, and then no, he just kind of needed a little bit more time, and he needed the opportunity. We weren't all in on Boyd being Keller's center this season.
No.
So yeah, this is kind of what we expected to happen. Maybe a little bit earlier than I think I predicted Heaton taking the spot, but this seemed like it was where it was going.
Now, this brings in the question, and it does, of course, relate to Clayton Keller still, because it talks about the forwards and how you slot things in. We're going to have a fuller episode about this later on, too. But with Logan Cooley likely going to be signing his ELC, at least signs point towards that in this off season after he's done with his freshman year at Minnesota. Where do you slot him in?
I don't necessarily think you play him with Keller right away, just because Keller is going to be getting a lot of your tough matchups. Let Cooley get the advantageous draw against a third liner. Give him some time to adjust.
Maybe example, Krause tends to sit on the third line to kind of as a really good physical support. Put him alongside of Krause.
Yeah. Put him with Krause. Maybe do a Krause, Cooley, Michelli. Krause may have 40 goals. He's just got 2 playmakers next to him. That could be interesting. But I mean, we all saw what happened when Dylan Guenther made his debut, and he looked good, but not great. And that is going to be how old Cooley is. Although it should be said, when Clayton Keller made his debut, it was 23 goals, 42 assists, 65 points. Still his career high assists. And I think that's who we're going to compare him to, because, both NCAA prospects, both American centers. Keller made the move to wing. I don't think that they anticipate Cooley doing the same. So
Cooley being as the great with faceoffs as he is, I just don't foresee that happening. I mean, it could. We could be wrong still, but it seems signs to be pointing towards that. But I just can't wait until the moment you can see Cooley and Keller together.
It's gonna be coming sooner or later. If not next season, certainly on the power play, and then maybe the season after. You get Cooley as a full-time number 1 center.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts you want to give out about Clayton Keller before we close things off?
I just one of these days we'll do a deep dive into the drought years for Keller, and yeah, that'll be painful, but he has come a long way, and you just love to see him rebound like that.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun to watch him continue to progress and continue to show to be a star for the Arizona Coyotes. But that's going to be it for today's episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. If you like what you heard, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We're available every way you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/lockedoncoyotes, and on Twitter at LO_Coyotes. I'm personally at Robyn_Leano. Carl Pavlok is at 54Howling. Interact with us, ask a question you might have, we might answer right back, or on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you guys are staying healthy. And don't forget to howl on.